It's good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining me. I do want to start by just apologizing if today isn't as lively as usual. I am a little bit unwell, and if you want a bit of a bigger update on that, we did post a community post just yesterday explaining a little bit about what's been happening with my family and I. So in short, I'm a little bit under the weather, and we're going to try and probably keep this a little bit more casual than our usual live streams. And both my kids are home with pneumonia and a cold, and just everyone's just a little bit under the weather right now. So we're doing okay. We have made some changes to some of our goals in the business for this month, just given the situation. So please check out the community post. It details everything. I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on all of that today. Instead, today I have a page that I've chosen from Johanna Basford's Small Victories book. So if you're wanting to colour along today, I've got the supplies here ready so that while we sort of get started, you can gather those things. So we'll leave that on the screen. Hello to everyone who is here. We are going to today be using the Derwent Lightfast pencils because I've been wanting to use these for a while. But I have also on the screen put a Prismacolor alternative because I know not many people have the Lightfast. So I've tried to give you a colour that's as close as possible to what I'm probably working with. I might not use all these colours, but I just wanted to make sure I sort of have all I need. So we'll just kind of see how we go. And the Tombow Dual Brush pens are a good choice for this because they're a water-based marker, not alcohol-based. So I'm hoping they won't go through the page, but it's something we're going to find out as we go. But yeah, this is what we're using. Here's a little bit of a sneak peek too of the cards that I've picked for this. I've actually picked 2 cards so you can see how I've kind of matched the colors. And if you don't have these particular colors or this brand, you can just kind of pick something similar if you're trying to color along and see how you go. Or if you have different markers, for example. Just remembering if you have alcohol markers, they will bleed through the page. So just say hello to a few people while everyone else gathers their supplies, not their surprises. Hello to our members that have joined us, Cara Marinas. Hello, good to see you. Debbie, great to see you here. Cajun Hawk, thank you for joining us. And Caitlin and Debbie, you guys are all our wonderful members, and I always love seeing your support in here. Mel is here as well, and I think that's all our members that are on right now. Also, there's a happy birthday here for Claudia. Happy birthday, Claudia! It's your birthday today. Oh, amazing. Happy birthday. We have a few birthdays around the office here happening over the next week as well, but I probably won't give you too many details on those being private, but birthdays are fun. So, yeah, today my plan is that I want to colour this page. I have a tendency to take a very long time to colour pages, but what I'm going to try and do today is pick a simpler version of colouring. So this is kind of a good beginner option if you're new to this channel and you want to have a go at colouring. I'm going to try and make this approachable for a beginner. I'm also going to show you some shortcuts that I use, which is why I've got the markers and the pencils in working almost a little bit of a mixed media approach to try and help us save some time, save our quality pencils, and also just to create some different effects. And I'm going to be showing you a bit of shading. So we're going to be talking through a few shadows, but I'm going to keep them quite simple, mostly for the sake of time and my own energy, but also because it is good to just think of our beginners every once in a while. So we'll be looking at how to use different types of shadows, like occlusion shadows is something that I like to use a lot in coloring pages. But also I noticed this page has, I'm going to call them clouds. Like you could treat it as like a moss or whatever, but I'm going to go for clouds. And I know that a lot of people struggle with coloring white objects. So I'll show you how I approach that as well, just as a nice, easy option. So if anyone has any questions before we start, let's get into those now. I will probably be on the chat a bit less today, and you'll probably see a bit less of my face today, just given how I'm feeling. But we still want to hang out and we still want to have a good time. So Shane is here as well today on our wonderful voice in the distance. Faceless.
Hello.
So he will be keeping a close eye on the chat. So if you have questions, if you have comments, please leave them. I do have it here that I can see, but I tend to get very distracted when I do. And because I'm not wanting to spend 3 hours on this, I want to kind of try and keep this to an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We'll see how we go. I don't think that's actually possible for me, but we'll try.
Not going to happen.
But I do want to be aware of my time, probably more so today, being a little bit, I'm going to be a little bit selfish today, because when you're sick, you got to put yourself first. That's enough on me. So we're going to get started on this soon. Are we ready to start? I don't know who's colouring along. If you find it hard to colour along, you can always watch the video later. We do keep our live streams up so that you can join in later, but I do want to get started. So this is the colouring page that we are doing today from Johanna Basford Small Victories. I'll show you the front cover, but I have blue tacked it down to the page. So blue tacked the page down to the table is what I was trying to say. So this is the colouring book that we're working from today. This book is actually really good for colour alongs because everything is quite small, and so it's like not too crazy and ambitious to try and do in a video, especially with me that just takes my time and loves to chat. There's another page in here that we did recently. Let me find it. It's somewhere. Before we get started, we did another page from this in a recent live stream. If you do have this book and want to try some other colour alongs, somewhere here we have, oh, where is it? No, it must be further back. I can't even find it. There it is. So in the last live stream I did from this book, we coloured these 3 things, and it was like 3 hours of 3 things, which is why it's going to be ambitious today, but we'll see how we go. These are a bit more ambitious as well though, because we had glass and we had some glowing stuff. So if you want to have a go at those or learn those particular techniques, you can find that live stream in the live section on my YouTube channel. Sorry. Oh, there we go. So here is our page, and I think we'll just jump in. So I am going to start. I was actually looking at these color palettes, and this particular color palette actually has buildings on it. And I thought, oh, that's really cool because we can kind of use that as a little bit of inspiration for this piece as well. So I picked 2 color palettes because I partly just couldn't choose between them, and they are very similar anyway, but it means that I've got these lighter colors to work in these buildings, like these kind of colors. But then I also have a bit more variety with the teal as well. You could just add this variety yourself, but I thought, look, I'm using both cards. I might as well put them both here. So we're going to start with our markers. Now this one is, hang on, I might actually start with 912. And basically what I'm going to do is go pretty flat with my coloring. I'm going to do some of the buildings. I think what we'll do is we'll just pick a few colors and go with that. So we're going to do some buildings in the 912 and some buildings in the 977. And then we might even bring in a third, like the 947, which is very similar, just to add a little bit of variety among the buildings.
You might have to show us those again because
they're not on the screen. I'm sorry. So the 912, the 977, these are both very similar to the colors in these buildings. And then the 947, maybe just for a bit of a variety so that we don't only have the 2 colors in the buildings. So that's my plan. I haven't planned ahead which buildings to do which colors. So I'm kind of just going to pick as I go. And we're just kind of doing flat coloring. I'm actually shaky today. I'm sorry. So if I'm a bit out of the lines, I apologize. It's, honestly, I think it's actually the Ventolin that I had before, trying to just get on top of not being well. So excuse my shaky hands. I probably wouldn't worry too much about going over the windows because I am personally going to make these windows darker like this picture in our reference photo. But if you wanted to make the windows glow like there's someone in them with the lights on, then you might want to be a bit more careful around your windows. I'm quite happy not to worry about that this time. Now, the other thing I'm doing with this is going very sort of simple colors. So I'm actually coloring each tower fully in the color, even though there's all these different sections. It's up to you. Like, there's actually a real opportunity to go quite whimsical with the colors on this. So you might not want to color along. You want to do your own thing. But I'm just showing you how I've decided to approach this particular page. If you have already colored this page a different way, I would love to see it. We have a free Facebook group where you can post any of your pictures. We do also have a members Discord, which comes along when you subscribe to the YouTube memberships. And the Discord is available for silver members or above. And we all often share the stuff we're working on, not just coloring, but everything. We share all the different projects we're working on. And those members also get extra live streams from me, extra look at what's happening, extra, what else? Coloring pages.
Speaking of members,
Yes.
we have a new member.
Oh, hello. I don't have a name to attach to you, but AW10120007. Welcome to our members. So we will see you in the Discord. Okay, so I've moved on to the 977, and we're going to do a few more buildings in this. This color, this is interesting. This color actually looks slightly different on this paper than this. That's something always worth just testing your colors out first, I guess. I might even just leave this on this side so that there's a, oh, you can't really see a lot, but that's okay. Just in case someone hasn't got their colors yet. Actually, it's in my way. Forget that. Sorry. Now, all the little details in these buildings, if you have more time, you might choose to like vary up the bricks in, say, a lighter color or a darker color. We are going to do some of that detail afterwards. I do want to show you a quick approach to coloring stuff like this, but also show you don't have to be intimidated by all the detail in a coloring page. Sometimes you can just choose to go, well, this is a wall, therefore it's one color. Sometimes it's okay to simplify things and to kind of take a step back rather than having to color every little detail a different color, because I know that can be pretty intimidating at times. So I'm sort of working on all the surfaces of the buildings, like what would be your brick or your cement or whatever, picking one color for them, and I'm going to pick a different color for all the rooftops. And that's probably the extent of the color variety, but then we'll use the pencils to add more details to still make them interesting, even with that less variety. I feel like I can't hold the pencil, the marker further back today because I'm too shaky. I don't know if you can see that. You can see my hand shaking. It's all right, you guys, don't make me nervous. It's just...
Where do you get the coloring book from?
I bought this one on Amazon. So I don't know if this one's available in stores. A lot of Johanna Basford's other books are available in stores. I bought this one on Amazon. I'm going to have pockets of silence in this stream if I can. I mean, I am such a talker, but today I'm kind of happy to just colour a little bit. So that's all right. We can either ask Shane to fill the void or we can just embrace the quiet every once in a while.
I'm not going to sing though.
No. 947. All right. So this is a slightly darker, but it's slightly red. It's kind of this colour here that we're going to do next. And so I'm just going to do, well... Do I want to do this? It makes all the buildings quite dark. I'm wondering if we should leave one of them a lighter colour, because we do have a pencil. I couldn't find, so for context, I couldn't find any marker in this lighter colour, but I do want to use this lighter colour. So I do have a pale peach here. So we might even leave one of the buildings without any marker so that we can bring that in. I'm thinking maybe this one here, and then to tie it together, this one here as well. So then we'll just do the rest of the buildings in this darker option. Would we do? Yeah, that's like a wood under there. All right. I think that is all of the background colouring that I'm going to do now. So we might jump in and do a couple of rooftops, and then I'll come and we'll start working on some of the shading in this area. So for our rooftops, I was thinking we could lean into some of these. So we might just mix up and use the 3. Maybe we'll even bring in a grey. So I actually brought in these dark colours here. I was really intending to use as shadows, not as the actual colours. But this Mars Black is very close to this colour. It's got a bit of a brown to it. So we either keep them strictly for shadows, or we could potentially do a rooftop in them as well. I might start with these colours here and see how we feel once we've got them down, whether we want to add another one. The 312, I'm not sure if I'm going to use that. I had it there just because it's got a bit more grey to it, and it might work as a good shadow for our lighter colour. But I'm also not sure that I want to, because shading with that would be easier if it was a pencil, but being a marker, it might just end up sitting in the unused pile. So we'll start with our teal. Of course I had to pick a colour palette with teal. So we've got 296 and 346, and we'll do some different rooftops with them.
All the people have just joined us. Did you want to just let us know what supplies you're using again?
Yeah, so I'm using the Tombow dual brush pens. I'll see if I can give you the list. Well, here's a quick on screen. Take a screenshot, then I don't have to keep it up. Tombow dual brush pen, I can never say that. Tombow dual brush pens we're using. And we're using the Derwent Lightfast pencils, but if you don't have the Lightfast, I've also put a Prismacolor number here that matches roughly a similar color. The only one that's not quite the same, I think, is this Midnight Blue. I've put 2 options here because the first option is the same as the Ocean Blue. I'm going to kind of be using them for the same purpose, so I might not even use both. It'll depend on how they kind of blend over the colors that I'm using them on, because they're going to be a bit more of a shadow color. There's not actually a blue in here, but when you start darkening the teal, I thought we might try with a slightly blue shadow to see how that goes, because there wasn't really good dark teal. So it was either go blue or go a bit more green. This is a bit more of a green shadow. So we'll see how that works when we get into it. But that's our supplies, and we are colouring Johanna Basford's Small Victories colouring book.
Now, with the water-based markers, do they bleed?
Yeah, so let me show you actually while we're at this point. Let me unclip. So the reason I've chosen water-based markers and not alcohol markers is because, luckily, they don't bleed through if you've got a good thick page like this. They will bleed through on like really thin colouring pages. Pretty much thin colouring pages, you just can't use any markers. But for a lot of like good quality pages, please test it at the back of a page. Don't rely on me saying that it works, but a lot of colouring books like Johanna Basford, like your Kirby Rosanas, all those kind of ones, the paper's thick enough that they will handle water-based markers. Just don't do like 20 layers. That's same with the colouring planner. Actually, the colouring planner can handle about 20 layers, but I still wouldn't recommend that much marker. You want to sort of keep the layers light. Even at the moment, the colouring of this isn't perfect. You can see there, because when you use water-based markers, the more layers, the darker they get. But this is basically going to be a base layer, like an underpainting, and we're going to come back with pencils. When we come back with pencils, you'll see that it'll actually just look a ton better, and it'll look more interesting rather than looking like just a kid's colouring page. And you'll also see that it will hide a lot of these little issues that the marker sort of creates, which is why I don't mind using the water-based instead of an alcohol-based, because we're not really worried about blending or making it perfect.
So speaking of the 2025 planner before, is everyone going to get a sneak peek of that soon?
Well, we are waiting today for the sample to arrive. If it does arrive while we're on stream, we will grab it and we will show you the new 2025 colouring planner, including the compact version. So we'll see how that goes. If not, then we will be showing it off the next time we jump on a stream. I don't have a date for that yet. And we might even post a community post with some pictures so that you can have a look at it, because we're very excited for it. And I know a lot of people have been anxiously waiting, even though it's like not even halfway through 2024. We get so many emails from people saying, when's 2025 coming out? It's actually quite surprising. So
do the water-based markers dry quickly, or do they smudge?
well, I'd give it 3 seconds maybe. I've never had issues with smudging, but like if you're left-handed and you're colouring, putting your hand straight over it, you probably want to give it a second or two. All right, I've done a lot in that light colour. I'm going to grab the darker colour and do a few others in that. The colours don't look very pretty yet, but the pencils will help. The pencils always help.
Trust the process.
Trust the process. Every page goes through an ugly stage. Oh, that rhymed. Every page goes through an ugly stage. We made a rhyme. That has to be like a quote. Every page has an ugly stage.
Maybe that can go like on the cover of your colouring book.
We could show them the colouring book.
Did we show everyone that, or was that the members?
I think the members have seen the colouring book. I don't think everyone else has seen the colouring book.
I don't even know where it is.
It's in the other office on the shelf. I always feel nervous when we do colour alongs because I'm making decisions on behalf of everybody. Please don't follow along unless you actually like what I'm doing. Maybe it's like hang out in the live stream and then if you decide that you like the end result, then you go back and colour along. That's maybe a better way to do it. Take the pressure off me. Ooh, Shane's just brought me the colouring book. All right, we'll have a look at that in a sec. So we have been working on a colouring book that I want to release this year. We were going to release it very soon, but we decided to just pause so that we could come in just with everything going on. We've had to kind of make some of those decisions, but we wanted to focus on the colouring planner for a moment because we really want to make sure that everyone has plenty of time with that in their hands before the new year. So we decided to pause the colouring book and go back to the colouring planner just in the workload, but we will come back to it soon. And the colouring book, I'm going to guess that we'll have it maybe September or October, but that's just a wild guess at the moment. I don't know. It'll be this year though. This year definitely. I'm just not sure when this year.
Do you have any tips for overcoming the fear of ruining a colouring page?
Do you know, I was watching something about mixed media recently because I've been doing mixed media for my next video, and that's very good for just overcoming fear of mistakes. One of the first things someone did in their art journal was they picked a page and they scribbled all over it, because then it's like no matter how bad you do, you can't do worse than the scribble. And actually, that's a really interesting concept. Maybe.
I think that was Gesso in one of his sketchbooks.
He did that as well.
Yeah.
Someone did it in an art journal and then he did it in a sketchbook as well. So Jazz has done this too, where he says he gets a new sketchbook and he does a big scribble and just makes a mess, because then it's like no matter what you do, it can't be as bad as that. And you've broken in the book, you've done the damage, so everything else from there on, the pressure comes off because you're not going to ruin the book because you did the first step. Maybe you don't want to do that on a colouring page necessarily, but maybe instead of picking your favourite page to start, you pick a page that you really don't like and you just get some colour on the paper. Because I think the fear of perfection, it's not the fear of the opposite, the fear of things not being perfect is probably the biggest thing that will hinder your creativity. And I know for like me, as soon as I've been able to let go of things being perfect, I've then taken more risks with my colouring. And if things don't work out, they don't always work out. It's not like going through the process means everything's going to be perfect. Sometimes the page doesn't look any good. And it's like, okay, it was a learning process or it was an experience. It should be more about the journey of the colouring and enjoying the process than about necessarily what the end result is. And in our members Discord, we actually have started now an ugly art channel for this purpose, to remind everyone that we should be celebrating the ugly art, because the ugly art is actually where you do most of your learning. The ugly art is where you figure out what doesn't work, and it gives you a chance to troubleshoot and try to solve something where the worst has already happened. So it's worth then trying to see if you can fix it. And if you can fix it, then it's a massive celebration, and you end up learning new techniques that will then help you in the future as well. So as crazy as it seems, it's like, you know what? Sometimes the fear, you've just got to stop and go, I'm not going to be afraid and I'm going to try. What's the worst that can happen? You ruin the page. Okay, start another page. Cover it up. Rip it out. Buy a new book. There are actually solutions to that. Or just embrace the failure and go, that was an amazing learning curve. I've never ripped a page out of a book, even if it hasn't gone well. I've just gone, okay, and move it on. And I do have some pages in coloring books that I've decided I'm going to use this page as a swatch page because I need to test the paper and I don't want to ruin the book. But actually, by doing that on one page, it takes the pressure off every other page being perfect. So there are not many people that will finish a whole book and it be a masterpiece. And I don't think that's realistic. I think it's actually really good to have pages that you aren't happy with, because it shows how much you grow, and it means that every extra page you do, your quality and your skills will improve, and you can look back and go, look how far I've come. Because even your best pages in 2 or 3 years time, when your skills are better, you're going to look back and be embarrassed by. It just means you're growing. It means it's a good thing. So don't expect them to be perfect. Someone just commented, you finish a book? Yeah, that's kind of half the point. I don't think people finish books. I don't, like, some people do, but gee, that would take a lot of persistence. Okay. We've left a few gaps, we've left the windows, and we're going to do this bottom area completely separately. So what I want to do now is pick some colors in the pencils similar to the colors that we've just used, and we're going to start working on a little bit of detail and shading. This is where it gets fun for me. So if we're looking at our lighter peachy color first, we've got the cinnamon color here, isn't quite the same. I'm not even, in fact, let's do a little test swatch on our paper. So this here is our base. No, this isn't my base color. That's 873. It was pretty much similar. They're basically the same color. Okay. Oh, it's a bit more pink. Maybe I should have done a couple in that to add a bit more variety, but that's okay. It's done now. So we want to look at what are the different pencils that can work on this, because sometimes, like, I mean, our white usually is pretty standard, but it's only very slightly lightening it. So it's good to just know that's what it's going to get. What I don't like is that it ends up a bit cloudy, so it might not be something we'll use. We might not go lighter. If we go lighter, we might grab a paint pen. Instead, we want to look at, what's our colors here? We've got the cinnamon, which is this one. This I don't expect to do much, but it will help us to even out the texture. So you can barely see that. But that's kind of good because it gives us an option to even out the texture. You can see it a little bit on this other color that we didn't actually use. So this is a good one just to keep on hand while we're working with this color. We also have the pale peach, which I don't expect to make much of a difference. A little bit. It's almost brighter than the white. So if we did want to lighten the color, we can use the pale peach on some of it. And then I need a darker color. So I'm actually thinking the dark honey, if we do this in some light layers, will give us, oh, it's gone quite yellow. That's more yellow than I planned, I'll be honest. It's not really darkening the color, it's just changing the color. So I might need to think a little bit differently. Maybe, let me see what the purple will do. That's getting pretty dark now though. I need some more marker. This is why I like to do this on another page, because it gives you a chance to kind of play around with the color and just see. It also will work differently on the different paper. This is not the same type of paper. So if I did a light layer of the purple, that's pretty strong and you can see the purple in it. But then I wonder if we then layer that with our dark honey. I should have let this dry. That's why it's the streaky. No, not dark honey. Sorry. What I was meaning to say is the cinnamon. So it's the same color. So if we kind of blend that with the purple a bit, we end up a bit closer to the original color. It sort of softens the purple. I don't know that the purple's the right choice though. Let's try the chestnut because it's got a bit more red to it. Get myself a new swatch. Just let that dry for a second. While that's drying, let's get our other brown ready. Which one did I use? Was it the 977? This one. Okay. All right, so back to our chestnut over this. this looks like the right choice, I think. If we do a light layer, that can actually blend quite nicely into that. And if you're struggling with the light layer, then we come back to that other color, the cinnamon, and use that to help us blend the two colors because it's very similar to the original. See how that's kind of ended up creating a bit of a gradient? So we actually just want to make sure that this layer with this color, that we're doing it nice and light as we can, and then darker on the edge. That kind of creates a gradient and blends it out. So that's what we're going for. So now with the shadows, we have a few choices here. I don't want to do a cast shadow or like a directional shadow on this page. I want to keep it a bit simpler than that. So that means that I kind of want to treat it like a front light. So we will do shadows in any areas that are hidden by other buildings. We call this an occlusion shadow, and it's a good place to start. So this building here is probably going to cast a little bit of a shadow behind it. It'll be dark around those edges. Maybe the top, maybe not, because if the sun is usually above, that's not going to happen. So we've got a little bit of a shadow here. So we're just going to darken the area behind that building and just kind of blend it out just lightly. I've put darker in here because that's really in the corner, but they're not much here. I'll do the same down here where we've got these clouds, although the clouds probably bounce light realistically, but that's okay. We're just doing it anyway. And we're just going to blend that out. So it's darkest in that tiny little bit, and then it sort of softens around it. Same over this one. We've actually got a 2 stacked building here. So we'll break them up a bit by putting a shadow on the second one from the first one. And then again, a little bit of a shadow up from the clouds. That's most of those areas is what I would do. If we want to assume that the light's slightly higher than it is lower because it's a sun, we could also do things like under the rooftops. So just do like a line here and then blend it out down. When I say blend it out, I really just mean add lighter layers as you go down. And you could even consider this as like something that's sticking out like a balcony, and we could do under the balcony. So they're just little shadows in different areas. And then it's up to you how many more shadows you want to add in here. So if we want this to be like a rail, we could just do a simple line, or you could blend it out. We could suggest that this whole section is maybe a bit darker. Same under here. We could make it darker in that top part of that pattern, but not that next part, because then it looks like that section is kind of sticking out a bit. It's really just a choice of which sections you want to do. Under these little windows here, we might do a very soft little shadow. And under these windows here. So that's most of the occlusion shadows, and also there's a bit of a drop shadow on these ones here from the sun being slightly higher instead of completely front on.
If you're colouring a background, do you do that first or do you do it last?
You can do it either way, but I would say that if you are using pencils and markers, I would always do the markers first before the pencils. But in terms of when to do your shadows, if you are only using pencils, sometimes I do them first because I kind of just do whatever I can see first. If I do the shadows first, then I can see all the shading, and then you can kind of colour in, and you might just top up the shading on your last layer if it's sort of disappeared a bit. But you can also just do it last. I think a lot of it just depends on what you can see in the moment as to what you choose to do. Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question. This particular tower, I would say, is rounded. So these ones here are flat. They're like a square building, so we're not going to do any extra shading on them. But this tower is round, which means that the front center part is going to get more light than around the sides. So what we can do to make it look round is just darken. You could either darken one side if you're doing a side shadow, or because we're trying to keep it all very front on, we're going to darken both sides and blend them back towards the middle a bit more than we have for some of the other shadows. And if you can keep that fairly smooth from dark to light, it will start to make the tower look a bit round. And we'll do the same on these little detail bits up here. We just dark on each edge and then bring it in. If you need practice doing the shading, I recommend just drawing a lot of gradients. I've done a lot of patterns or there's a few videos where I've just done a rainbow like 50 times and it's just gradients, but that gets you really good practice in doing this shading. So I definitely recommend having a go with that. I think that's it for that color. I didn't end up needing the lighter color, but really if you did just have any sort of bits that you wanted to cover up after you've done that, you can just come back with that color over the top, almost just to kind of help blend it in. But in most cases, you only really need one darker color to be able to do this. If you wanted to add more detail, which we can do at the end, we might even grab a darker color, like one of the really dark browns, and just fill in the darkest points of the shadows to give it just a bit of extra dimension. But that's kind of an optional step. And we'll just see how we go for time today. Because, I mean, we've only been here half an hour. We've actually come pretty fast. So we'll see. We might have time at the end. Now, I want to try and find a similar color. What I might do first is make a note on my page here that this chestnut color is good for the shadows.
Sparkling Rose Creations has said pencils over markers is my new favorite thing to do since watching you do it a few months ago.
Yeah, that was a video I did possibly 2 years ago, but I always really like that process. Okay, now I believe we used both of these, 977 and 947. We did. So let's see what we've got here. This is the 977. Just having a look at what our blending options are, and this one's the 947. Right. So generally just a pencil that's slightly darker but a similar tone is a good option. And then it's just experimenting with different colors to see how much dark you need to go. That chestnut color might actually work quite well on these two. In fact, it does. It looks lighter compared to this, so we might need something darker as well. But I do like that if we're using the same color and everything, there's a lot of consistency there. Because it's also got almost a little bit of a bluey red to it compared to these other colors. So it's kind of a nice, cool shadow that it's adding. So that's actually a good option. That's our chestnut color. Otherwise, we can also go back and look at our dark honey, although that ended up being really yellow. So it might do the same on these, or it might not be noticeable. It sort of made the color a lot more yellow than maybe I was expecting. So we might just put that one aside and not use that. I think the chestnut color is actually the right choice for all of these. I didn't choose a color in between. I kind of don't want to go back into my pencil case today. I'm trying to avoid ending up with 50 pencils because that's what I often do. So we're going to stick with this one. So let's come back and we'll do the same thing. We're going to do just the same shadows behind areas that are going to be obscured, those occlusion shadows tucked away in all the little sort of nooks behind buildings, stuff like that. And if you're not sure where to put shadows, I usually just go, okay, well, where's some that are obvious? Like for me, these are the obvious ones. And once you've done, then you could stop and look at it again and go, okay, hey, what have I missed? And you'll find that the more you do, the more you start to realize, okay, actually this here could be a shadow. So just start with what feels obvious and then more will sort of show up as the picture comes together. You'll start to notice areas that feel flat that you could still improve.
Did you ever expect yourself to be doing stuff like colouring on live streams?
I didn't expect myself to be doing colouring at all. Colouring kind of found me. I didn't choose colouring, so to speak. But I do enjoy it. I actually really like this colour on this colour. I might even do the windowsill darker so it sort of looks like it's recessed in a little bit because the light can't get to it as easily. So happy with that. Might make that row a little bit darker. This here we might treat as a round, it looks like it's rounded. So again, we'll do each edge and kind of go a gradient inwards. And then we'll do under the roof because that will not get much light. There's another round one. When you've got little areas, you don't need to worry as much about blending. It really just takes like 4 strokes and it's kind of done. have I missed? Over here.
And Elmo has said that has to be a T-shirt. I think that's referring to
The comment earlier.
Could be like the colouring. I didn't find the colouring life. The colouring life found.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were talking about our earlier reference that we made. All right, so starting to get a little bit more 3D now. That really flat, the flat-looking marker work is starting to get some depth. Pencils can do a lot, but it also means by doing it with both of them, you don't have to spend 4 hours colouring with pencils trying to get the shading perfect. We can kind of skip a few steps by using the markers as that underpainting.
How much time do you spend colouring in a week?
Unfortunately, it's pretty close to 0. I don't really colour much off camera. In fact, I don't think I ever colour off camera. There are so many other things that we are doing all the time. I spend a lot of time on the computer doing drawings for things like the colouring planner. I spend a lot of time doing the back-end stuff in our business. We have a team now, so I'm managing a team. I also spend a lot of time not just filming the videos and doing the work for each video, which is not just colouring, it's a lot of things. And then I'm involved in the editing. I'm involved in the customer service. I'm involved in talking to different creators and a lot of our network and our community. And there's a lot of things. And so for me, colouring is also not it's not the thing I go to when I want to take a break, because it is a bit of a job for me. So I do love these live streams because we get to just hang out and colour, and I do enjoy colouring, but it's not something I end up choosing for myself. If I've got time for myself, I end up doing a jigsaw puzzle or playing video games or doing something else, because art has become my work, and it's work that I love. I love doing it. I love that I get to do this for a job. But it does mean it's not necessarily downtime. If I colour in my downtime, I'm constantly thinking, oh, maybe I should have done this on a video. Maybe I should have done this on a live stream. If I get it right, then I can photograph it later and post it. Like, it's very hard to turn off the business brain. So it's something that I've chosen to kind of just separate a little bit. But on the flip side, that might sound really sad to people. I didn't colour really before I did it as a YouTuber either. So it's not something that I've lost. It's, if anything, it's something that I've gained because I now have a job that I love that's creative. And I still have my own hobbies that I get to do as well. And I think that's a really good best of both worlds situation. So I'm not sure what to do with these chimneys. I might just colour them in with this dark colour. I think they're going to disappear when I do that, actually. Maybe I shouldn't have done that.
What would you suggest for preserving coloured pencil work, like a spray fixative or something similar?
I tend to not use anything. You're not going to save the light fastness if it wasn't light fast to start with. And preserving it, unless you've got, I guess in a book it would rub off a bit. You can get fixatives, but they are going to change the look of your work. So I've not really used a fixative except for if I'm doing like pastels that will rub. But you could try a fixative if that's something that you're wanting to investigate, protecting your work a bit. Generally, I just leave it. Okay, so for this next few towers, what I'm going to do is go much lighter. I'm going to use just pencils, and we're going to do pale peach as the base colour, and we're going to use a cinnamon for the shadows. So this, I guess, answers that question before of my approach with things. I am going to do the shadows first. The reason being, when I come back with my pale peach, it means I can press a bit harder and just do the final layer. But I don't want to do a final layer until I'm happy with where my shadows are. So I'm going to do, and we might darken these shadows afterwards, but because it's a light building, we're going to start light. So I'm going to start with this one being a bit round, but it's also a bit of a weird shape. We're going to do those two sides first. Don't be intimidated by all the swirls. It's still basically round, even though you've got these funny edges. The only difference is we might choose to just do maybe one line across each of these as well, to assume there's a very, very, very slight shadow casted along there. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but see how we go. I'm going to do down the side of this tower as well, assuming that it's rounded. And I'm going to do a bit heavier under here because I don't think that's going to get much light, and the same up here. That's probably all I need to do there. This one here, we're going to do across that top section, roof shadow, and we're going to build up a little bit in some of these lower areas. Oh, and over here because this building's in front. I think that's all the areas there. So now we can come back with our lighter colour and kind of just colour around that. And the shadows are already done. We definitely need to darken those shadows, just because this shadow compared to this shadow, it doesn't feel like it's from the same picture. So we need to come back with something darker. We'll just have to do it bit by bit so we don't overdo it straight away. So I wonder if we can, because again, I didn't pick many middle colours here. We might go back to our chestnut and just be really light with layers. Plus I've already put down quite a bit of a layer of the cinnamon. That's the purple. So that should help me to not overdo it on the chestnut now. We'll just start right on the edges and just be really careful not to overdo it. And if I do a light layer, we can always come back with our lighter pencil, and that should drop the intensity down just a little bit. Again, we'll just go in the middle, but very subtle. And someone talking about earlier about fear of the page. I mean, I feel that, because for me, if I make a mistake, it's like we're live on stream and everyone's watching. And if I haven't done a practice version of this beforehand, and I am making it up as I go along. So the cost of mistakes is pretty high. Not only that, but if people are colouring along and not waiting to see the end result first, then I can potentially be messing up everyone's work. So I feel you. All right, so I'm going back over with the cinnamon to kind of burnish that darker colour, but also try and blend it out a bit into the lighter colour to hopefully tone it down a touch and make it feel more like connected colour-wise. And I think that is working well. So I'm pressing pretty hard at the moment. But notice how with this, so I did the shadows first, but I did the shadows with like a middle colour. I didn't go straight with the harshest colour, because you can always go darker, but it's very hard to go back lighter. So that's something to consider. All right. So I think we're pretty good with the basics of the buildings. I'm just trying to decide if there's anything else I want to do here. Oh, I have done that one. The other thing we could do is look at some of these darker areas. I mean, maybe that's getting into too much detail for now. We might see how we go for time, because I do want to finish the page completely, even if it's like half okay, instead of spending heaps of time on perfect details and then not finishing the page. So we might move on. What I will do as a quick thing is I'm going to grab a dark marker here. So we've got our black Tombow, the N25, and I'm going to do the inside of the windows, because my plan was that all the lights are off. It's usually I would go for lights on, make them glow a little bit, but I actually liked how it feels here with all of the dark interiors. And so I thought, let's do that today. It's actually something different for me. I would normally turn all the lights on and use it as an opportunity to get out the paint pens, create some glowing effects, do all that. It does mean we are losing the wonderful detailing in the windows. That's okay. You could always leave like one light on if you want. I'm not sure if these are supposed to be open windows or if that's actually a line that's like a little curtain or something, but we're just gonna make them open.
A suggestion that you could do a candle in a window.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really cool idea. I might not do it today just because, again, I'm trying to be quick today. I have a terrible habit of not finishing pages on streams. I really wanted to finish this page today, so I am going to just stick with the simple stuff today. All right, we have now got our 2 roof colours, which is our 2 greens. Well, teal. I can't believe I just called it green, of all people. Okay, so we've got our 2 colours, and I've got a few pencil colours here that we might be able to work with. So our darker colour that I've got is the pine, but I also had the option of one of the blues if we found that it looked better on top. I'm going to start with the pine first, but I'm open to the blue because this shadow we already have has got a bit of a purple to it. So moving into that blue kind of shadows might actually end up looking better. So we've got our pine here. We've got our, what's that one? Ocean blue. Where's that? Our ocean blue here. So there are 2 options that we are looking at to go darker. And then we have this peridot colour, which is very similar. So again, we'll just see how that looks. I'm not really shading lighter today. And that also depends on the pencils you use. I don't know how well the light fast do in shading lighter. I mean, we've kind of tried it a few times here, but paper makes a big difference too. But if we were to try that, I just don't think, yes, it works there. It's a little bit of a grey colour because of what I've chosen. But I don't really think this picture needs that. It's not really one, the way that I've coloured it today, it doesn't really need highlights. So I'm not going to do that today. We are going to go, so this green, it actually says blue. This teal pencil doesn't work too well on the dark. It's the same colour, whereas it should work pretty well on the light colour. But again, our shadows here have ended up being quite prominent. So we might try instead, or as well, either the pine or the blue. Can't even, I've run out of space. I actually like the blue. I do like cool shadows, and I feel like we've kind of created a cool shadow, even if it wasn't intentional on the rest of this. So I think I'm not going to use the pine. The 2 colours that I've ended up doing is peridot blue and ocean blue, dark. All right, so we're going to start with our peridot, which is the sort of lighter colour. We're not going to use this too much other than just to sort of fill some of the areas like we've been doing. So on this, we'll kind of treat it curved again. Start bigger on the outside and blend in. Yes, I am reading the chat. Just saw that comment. I'm reading the chat. I'm just a bit unwell today, so I'm not as active on the chat as what I would usually like to be. I don't really know there's a whole lot of shading that I can do on the roof because a lot of them are sort of higher, so they will be seen. But here we go. Today is not your usual live stream, let's put it that way. If you have jumped in late, I'm not going to go through everything again, but we did put a community post yesterday, just kind of explaining a bit of what's going on right now as to why I'm not my usual bubbly self, and we've just got a lot happening. But we're working our best, and I'd like to think everyone's still having a lot of fun. So I'm just darkening the areas behind the other buildings at the moment, and maybe a slight lip on the top of the buildings because there's like a different part of the roof that kind of goes up. The blue's not really that noticeable on this dark green, so I might even bring in a darker colour. We'll see how it looks once I've done this. Thanks, Cajun. My therapeutic colouring. It's feeling kind of therapeutic for me today. I think I needed to colour today. Okay, I'm pretty happy with all the shadows here. I will just get, what's this one? This is our Mars. Oh, that's a bit more of a brown black. I might get the Midnight Black just for these darker rooftops, just because I feel like you can't really see any shading on them. So this is basically as dark as it gets.
Do you ever find yourself stuck on adding more and more detail to a picture and finding it difficult to stop adding?
That's 100% me. That is probably my biggest problem, is knowing when to stop. It's so tempting to just keep going. I don't really have an answer as to when the right thing is. I often find that giving yourself some kind of time restriction can help with that, but then you might not want to give yourself a time restriction. So there's nothing wrong with just adding more detail. As long as you, like, if you hit a point and you feel like it goes back a step because you've added more detail, maybe you need to stop and think, do I really need to add more? But I am definitely the culprit of not knowing my limits with that, and I just keep going and going and going and never stopping. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask on how to overcome that, because I don't. I just go for it. Well, I've got the black. Speaking of continuing and not knowing my limits, I've got the black in my hand. So I'm going to do a bit more in some of the other shadows just to kind of give a bit more contrast, if anything, because a lot of it is very same at the moment. So I am going to just darken a few of the other shadows. I'm going to try not to overdo it. Just some of the ones that I feel like could just give us a bit more depth, like under the rooftops, for example. Just make them a little bit darker. And I'm not even like blending the black out, because then it'll get heavy very quick. I'm really just adding like one line with the black, or filling a section. It's a little thing, but I feel like that's already made a pretty big difference to some of those areas. I probably, mainly for the occlusion shadows at this point is what I would use that for. I wouldn't use it for drop shadows. I think the black is probably too heavy for the drop shadows. I don't know, under the roof, that's probably technically actually a drop shadow. I don't know, the technicality of what's what doesn't necessarily matter, because we're not going for like photo accuracy here. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with that. I don't know, love your feedback on if you think we need to add more, but I think for what was intended to be a quick and simple page, this has taken us an hour to do, and I think that covers that pretty well. Plus, I do want to now move on to some of this other detail, but just a few notes on this, like now that we're sort of got here. So this really is just the technique of using markers with a layer of pencils. And in most of these areas, I've only used one pencil over one marker. I've just picked a slightly darker pencil. So you can see how much that has actually very quickly made this look 3D, very quickly given an effect. If you chose to add more colors or change up your colors, or even adding the details in here, you're only going to make this effect even better. So this basic effect is kind of like the basic stuff, and then you can just take it to whatever level you want. You can get paint pens to do detailing or add lights in the windows. You could use different shades of the same markers to fill in things like the different bricks or the different sections here, or you could go fully whimsical and pick all different colors for every section, but then use the same shading that I've used to kind of tie it all in together and make it feel 3D. But yeah, this is only used, I know I've got a lot of pencils out, but we've really only used maybe half of what I've got out so far. But I do want to continue and do this section here because I do think we can finish this. It'll be the first time I think possibly ever that we've actually finished a page in a live stream. We'll see how we go. So we've got here, we've got what could be like grass or moss or bushes, or it could be clouds. I'm thinking that this is a floating island in the sky, and therefore I think clouds is more fitting. And I just like the idea of colouring clouds. So I am going to not use any markers for this because I didn't have a Tombow marker that was light enough to represent a white. I'm not actually going to use the white pencil right away, although we might use that to help us blend it out. We're going to use this light aqua colour, which I believe is this one, and we're going to use the turquoise green. Now you can do this with a light blue or like any colour that's super light. You can do this depending on the look you're going for. I've picked this colour because this is my colour palette and I actually just want to sort of stick within the colour palette. But you could do this same effect with any sort of combo of light colours. Usually you just need one or two and then you can use the white to kind of help you with the middle areas. But for this to be white, we don't just leave it white by not colouring it. We show the white by using these lighter colours around what would be the shadows. Again, same sort of process as the shadows to help create a bit of depth, but still give it that white look. And this works for anything that you're colouring white. In fact, if you do want to learn more about colouring white, I do have an older video now, but I have a whole video where I talk about white and all the colours that are in white and how you can colour different white objects. So that is worth looking at. I'll get Holly to pop a link in the description to that video if she can find it. Mission for Holly. But let's get started. The good thing about this particular page and what a lot of colouring pages do is that they've got these little dots along here. So I would say these little dots are actually a really good point to start with your shading if you're not sure where to shade. And we're going to start with our darkest colour, but we're going to keep it very light-handed if we can. If you don't have markers like the dots, I would just say start around the edges, start around one edge. So we're going to go around the bottom edge because everything else we've done has been more shading underneath as if the light is slightly higher. So we're not going to colour the tops, we're going to colour the bottom, assuming there's a bit of a shadow there. So we'll start with that and then I'll show you what else you can do. So I'm just doing a line really to start, a solid line around these areas. You can skip some areas, you can, like there's sort of no perfect way to do this. You can even extend some of the circles a little bit if you're feeling brave.
I've got a few questions saved up. How often do you go live?
It's varies. We don't really have a schedule. We try to go live at least once a month. I'd like to do that more. It's something that if we can fit it in, we will. We also go live more just for our members. So the members have a few lives and theirs are usually a bit more casual as well, or it'll be whatever I'm working on for the next video, or if I'm working on one of our products. That's the kind of stuff we do in the member live streams.
Another question. Where do you find the colour scheme cards?
The colour scheme cards are from the Colour Cube, which you can find on my website, and I'll get Holly, when she can, to pop a link in there for that as well. Unless someone else wants to pop a link in, save Holly the trouble while she's trying to find the white video. So what I'm doing now, just before we jump into the next question, is I'm lightly now working out from those areas that I coloured. And I think the key here is actually not to evenly do it across everything. Keeping it uneven will be a bit more realistic because some shadows, some clouds will be thicker than others or stick out more than others. So by doing a bit of an uneven approach, so leaving this one, but colouring this one, leaving a few here, you're going to end up with a little bit more of a realistic cloud. Whereas if you did like an even thick border, it's going to look very 2D, even with the shading.
Do you like to keep your pencils on the sharper side or more round?
I like sharp, but it does depend a lot on the brand. It also depends, like sometimes when I'm colouring like in a live stream, I just get distracted and forget to sharpen them and don't even notice that they've gone blunt and that I'm pressing differently. So generally I would like them to be as sharp as possible. And for some brands like say Prismacolor, that's not as sharp as something that's a firmer pencil like this. I generally use the M&R sharpener. It's the same as the Dull 133, I think it's called. It's on our website. We have a section on our website for all my favorite supplies and favorite resources. This one and that one are the same sharpener, and they've what we've used to sharpen these today. When I'm using my polychromos pencils, though, I don't use this. I actually use a different sharpener that's got a bit of a stronger point. It's the Uni sharpener. In saying that, that sharpener is like $80. And the only reason I use it is because I already had it, because I reviewed all the sharpeners. So it's not one that I would actively say go out and buy for that kind of money, but it is a beautiful sharpener and it's Japanese made. And so it does a great job, but it's actually too much of a point for most of my pencils. It only works for something like the polychromos because they're such a firm pencil. It might work on these light fast, but I actually really like the point that this one gives. And this one I find too, because it's a manual crank sharpener. I talk about this in the sharpener video, if you go find that. It's very gentle on the pencils, the way that it sharpens. And so it's actually pretty good for Prismacolors as well. It's become my go-to. It's not very portable. If you want a portable option, my other go-to is the T-Gull. But this one I have had to buy a few because they go blunt pretty quickly. And they're cheaper though, but they're great and you can set it to different sizes, which is awesome. But this one, I only bought a new one recently. And I mean, I do a lot of pencil stuff. If it's not coloring, a lot of pencil testing and things on this channel. So I treat them quite industrially, even though they're not a commercial one. And I've only just recently bought a second one. And the first one is still sharp. It's actually the mechanism in mine stopped auto-stopping. So I decided to buy a second one. But otherwise they've lasted for ages. So that I think is probably the better investment if you had to pick something to buy. Yeah. All right, this front cloud, I don't think I need to do much more. Even just doing that a little bit that I've done makes it look quite 3D. If you did want to add more, you could potentially just add in some little cloudy spots among it, but I wouldn't go overboard in doing that, right? So like just adding one there just to give a bit of fluffiness to it. Or around here. You don't want to do that too much because it's very easy to go overboard with something like that. The other thing is this back section, we can do a few more because it's got the flowers in front of it. So the flowers will be casting a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to kind of shade around them. I could actually even just leave it without the lighter color because I've colored lightly and kind of blended it out as I've gone. But just to show you how you can use a second color if you need to, you just work off the main color and just go out a little bit further in those sections again. This one, I don't even know if you're going to see this color on the camera. It's pretty light.
Is there a reason why you chose 2 color cube cards and not one?
I could have, this is actually a very simple palette and the two are very similar, so I could have actually just used one. I sometimes just like 2 because like I loved probably this palette more out of the 2, but I love this reference picture and I thought actually bringing in this medium color is basically the same as these. So really the palette I've worked off could be this or this, but I was like, because I'm using the darker colors, it was easier for me to just bring them together. It's honestly a personal preference. If you are going to mix 2 together, like, I mean, you look at those colors, there's not a whole lot of difference. If anything, the darker colors from this are almost the just darker version of these ones. So you're not always going to find 2 cards the same as that, and you don't even need to. Like if I showed you just this, it's the same color palette, but then we've got a few darker colors in. If I show you just this, it's the same color palette, but we've brought in a brighter teal. So I usually add a second palette if I want to just add, say, 1 extra color or just want something a bit brighter or want to add a bit of a splash of color and the 5 colors might not be enough. So I will sometimes just grab another palette. And if I do that, the best way to mix 2 palettes together is not to just go random. Like you would not put them together, I don't think. But what you want to do is find a palette that already has similar colors. So an example would be this one. Because I've got 2 very almost identical, that's an interesting coincidence, because these are very similar colors, you can be a little bit more confident that these colors will go with these and probably with these as well. Not always, but it does mean that you could potentially extend this palette. That's actually quite pretty because you've already got a couple of colors that match between the two. That's usually my advice if you are going to put two palettes together. It's not essential. I don't always do it. Sometimes I just like to, just to give myself a little bit more variety in the color. You just got to be careful not to bring in 20 colors, because then there's no point in even having a color card. The color cards are supposed to sort of take that thought process out of it, give you confidence in the colors you're choosing, and help you to do it with just a few colors. Because often a few colors is the key rather than having 20 colors. So that is kind of all I'm going to do on that white. So there's actually a lot of gaps still. I didn't even need the white pencil to do it, but you could potentially go over some of this with the white pencil. All that's going to do is make it a bit cloudier compared to, because the paper isn't a pure white. It's a little bit of an off-white. But I do find that a white pencil is often just better for sort of muting the other colours a bit, making a bit more pastel. The white Prismacolor in particular is amazing at making colours into a pastel colour. So if you find that you've gone too heavy in an area like this, the white might help you pull it back a little bit. But don't rely on the white to do that for you. It's better to just get the colours right in the first place. Okay, so we don't have a lot left. The last bit we have is this kind of, what do you call this? What's it called? The ground, really. We have to decide what we want to do with this, but the leaves are pretty easy. The leaves will just be a green
like
or the
floating
teal.
island.
It is. It's a floating island, and so we have a choice here. We could choose to make this just an earthy colour, as if it's been ripped out of the earth and lifted into the sky, or you could potentially turn this into almost like a crystal sort of thing and be like, it's a crystal underground because it's a magical scene, you know? Or because it's clouds, you could even make this into like an ice thing or something. I feel like for the color palette I've chosen and for the direction I've taken this, I think that ground makes the most sense, but you could lean into ice or like an iceberg thing if you maybe chose cooler colors up here. I think that'd look good. Or if you've chosen a lot of bright colors, you could turn it into like a rainbow crystal or something. I think that could also look really cool. So there's a few options here. There's no sort of right or wrong approach. We are going to go for the rocky look, as if it's been ripped out of the soil and it's just how it happens to be cut. So I'm going to go back to these colors here. I haven't used, I might later on cross out the colors I didn't end up using, because like this 873, we didn't use at all. We ended up only using the 912. I don't think we used the 969 at all either. We kind of just stuck to these two, and I like how they've turned out. So to simplify, we're going to cut that one off, and we cut this one off. So we've already reduced the colors that we actually need. If you're doing this, we'll write them in the description. Not that that helps if you watch the start and gathered all the pencils anyway, but that's what we'll do. So what I'm going to do down here is pick and just kind of mix and match the colors, but I'm going to keep them similar so that it doesn't look too all over the place. Or you could just do them all one color and use your pencils to vary them up. So I'm going to use the 977 and the 947, which I think are the two sitting right here. Yes. So I'll just try and monitor the chat for a moment so that Shane can go check on the kids and make a coffee. But then we will, I'll see how I go in chatting while colouring. Then we'll try and sort of balance this. Again, if you're late to this, I'm a little bit unwell today, which is why I'm sort of getting a bit of extra help from Shane with all this kind of stuff. So... We've got both kids downstairs unwell. One of them has had pneumonia this week. One of them had pneumonia about 8 weeks ago. So they're both just a bit under the weather. which is a bit sad. And I have caught a cold too, which hopefully doesn't develop into anything worse given the bad run that we've had in our family. But I think we're through the worst of it at this point. They're both starting to get a lot better, and I will hopefully have just a short stint of being unwell. I did wake up this morning and had absolutely no voice, which is not what you want when you're about to do a live stream. That's not ideal, but it sort of came back after about 10 minutes, so it was all good. So my plan for today's live stream, because I just noticed there's a question about it too, is we're probably going to be maybe another, I'm going to say another 20 minutes at the most. Trying to keep today short. We started at 10:30, so an hour and a half was sort of my goal. Shane was joking that means it would probably be 2 hours, but we'll see how we go. We're kind of halfway between. So anyone placing bets? Our team probably are placing bets. We will have to do another live stream soon, introducing you to our team again, because we've had quite a few new team members since we last did a video meeting the team. I think that video is on my second channel, which I don't really post on anymore, but it was also in the members area. And each of our team are on our members Discord, so the members know our team pretty well at this point, but we have had a few changes recently. We've got a new illustrator who's joining us, who's helping me doing some amazing work. So I will definitely be introducing you to them soon, along with a few other team members who... Holly, who's in the chat today, is also the one who has been answering your emails if you're sending through emails. And yeah, we have a few other people as well. Nafisa saying, don't forget to drink water and lots of tea. Absolutely. The coffee's good during the live stream to just give me a bit of an energy boost and the warm on my throat. But I've also just been trying to drink as much water as I can. And a beautiful friend of ours made us some soup today. So that's going to be my lunch, and I'm going to really enjoy it. Hopefully it will help a little bit as well. So I've just got the two different colors of markers, and I'm just trying to fill everything. I'm a little bit shaky today, so my drawing the lines isn't perfect. That's okay. Doesn't always need to be perfect. So now that we've got those two, we'll get back our shadow color, which we've pretty much just used the chestnut on all the shadows for everything so far. I might end up making the shadows under here darker, but we'll start with the chestnut and we'll see how we go. So I am using the Derwent Lightfast in case you missed that earlier, but if you need your Prismacolor option, I've also got a Prismacolor color here that you can work off. Just because I know the Lightfast, I might sharpen this. I know the Lightfast are a pencil that not that many people have. So just context on these pencils while we're here. The Lightfast, so I've got the set here. I actually owned a very small set of Lightfast. I still have them in my drawer somewhere. When I did the ultimate review of coloured pencils, where I reviewed 90 brands of coloured pencils all back to back, and they, the Lightfast ended up being ranked the top with the Caran d'Ache Luminance. If you know me and you've seen some of the stuff on my videos, you'll know that the Caran d'Ache Luminance have been my favourite pencils for a very long time. And so I was very curious in this video to see if anything else came close to the Caran d'Ache or whether that would just remain as my favourite. And I was trying to be really objective in really assessing everything almost with a blindfold if I could to see what the favourite pencils were. And in the end, the Caran d'Ache Luminance still sat at the top alongside the Derwent Lightfast. And the only reason I couldn't really review the Lightfast even better was because I had a set of 12, I think. So it was not very many pencils. Derwent have since actually reached out to me and they have gifted me this full set of Lightfast, which I'm very, very grateful for because I have been wanting to give them a proper go. They seem like really beautiful pencils and it's 100 sets, so they're obviously not cheap. So they are beautiful. Derwent does really good quality stuff in general. And if you can't afford these, another set that I also ranked really high for the Derwent, which I also really like, is the Derwent Chroma Flow. So they're not sponsoring this video or anything like that. I just wanted to let you know because I am using them. And I really just want to explore them because I'm really impressed. And I do have to say that I did meet some of the Derwent people when I was in New Orleans recently. And I was just really impressed with them as people as well. Sometimes you meet brands and it's just like, they're just horrible and you kind of don't want to use their pencils anymore, even if they're good. It's sort of tricky.
Can you tell us what brands they are? Names.
No, I'm not here to bash brands. And you just never know if it's like one bad salesperson as well that you've met, or just, you know, they've just picked the wrong people to do the promo. Like, you got to give them the benefit of the doubt with that. So I usually give brands a lot of grace in that kind of thing. But I was actually just really impressed with the Derwent team. And honestly, after talking with them, I kind of want to use their pencils even more. So that's always a good sign. So I don't have any kind of partnership with them or anything like that, just to be clear. Literally just that I like finding brands that talk to their audiences and listen to feedback and are generous in general. And so far, the reputation that I'm, like the impression that I'm getting, I'm really impressed by. So that's always a good thing. All right, with my shadows, I'm doing some extra shadows under this top section in around each of the different leaves. And I'll probably do a little bit of a shadow behind some of the leaves. And then I'm going to decide, maybe I'll even do some shading just under here where there's actually a bit of lines that Johanna's given us, just to kind of create a bit of sense of depth between the different rocks. I don't even know. I'm kind of just making it up as I go along. That's what I do. And we'll see how it turns out when we're done, I guess. Maybe around this edge. We could even, with some of these, not blend them perfectly and do sort of sharper edge changes because they're rocks. If you blend them too perfectly, they'll end up looking rounded. And we don't want them to look rounded. We want them to look flat. So someone's comment about Derwent drawing pencils. That's funny because maybe I'm getting them mixed up. Derwent drawing, is that no? Maybe I don't own Derwent drawing pencils. I thought I did, but everyone keeps talking about them being amazing pencils, and I'm trying to think. I have the Derwent artist. Went through the list with them, and I have like most of them, but maybe I don't have Derwent drawing pencils. That's funny. Well, I'm going to have to try the Derwent. Maybe someone can check my blog when I did the ultimate comparison and see if Derwent drawing is in there. It's quite possible that with all the different types of pencils they have that I have not tried them, which would be insane because I feel like I've tried every pencil, but...
Apparently they only come in a 24 set.
Ah. Oh, so when you say you want more of them, we want bigger sets is what we're saying. That's good feedback. I'm quite enjoying colouring today. I enjoy it does mean that sometimes I'm not really focused on what I'm colouring. I'm just colouring. But it's nice. It's good. It's supposed to be enjoyable. It's supposed to be therapeutic. I know for me sometimes when I'm doing stuff on camera, it becomes a bit more pressure than therapy. That actually, for context, is why I'm really enjoying the mixed media. Although I haven't done it in front of an audience yet, so I'm sure if I did a live stream with mixed media, I might be a bit more uncomfortable, but I'm enjoying that it's just really relaxed and no pressure, and I can just go for it. And if you make a mistake, it just becomes a part of the art and you just keep going. When I'm done when we are finished with this, which we're coming close, I will just show you a little bit of the journal that I've started to give you a little bit of a sneak peek because you've hung around for the stream. So let's finish this first. I don't want to leave a half-finished page. This is the closest we've come to finishing a page in a live stream, so we're going to go for it. I've got my Mars Black, which is the darker brown. I just wanted to see, maybe add a bit more deeper shading because I feel like the shading up here is quite dark. This isn't dark enough yet, just comparatively. So I just want to make a few darker shadows around some of these areas. I'm conflicted in that, like, the clouds should probably actually be letting off light rather than shadows, but I kind of just chose to do it this way. So I, after this, might even go have a look like on Instagram and see who else has colored this page, if anyone has done it, because I'm really curious as to different approaches. I know for me as a coloring book artist myself, I always find it fascinating how different people interpret pages, especially if, like, when you're drawing people, if I've drawn a person and in my head they've had brown hair, it's always really interesting to see someone then draw them as like a redhead or a blonde or with like purple hair, because it's not what I pictured and it produces such a different end result that I end up looking at it and being like, wow, it's like a whole different personality in the picture. So I always find it really fascinating seeing how different people interpret the same page. Just adding a few corner shadows to kind of suggest that these are broken up in a way, fragmented.
Rhonda is very much looking forward to your mixed media.
Good to see you here, Rhonda. You've probably already seen most of the stuff that I've started because you're a member, and I have been sharing a few behind the scenes with the members as we go. Okay, I'm liking this now. I like with the darker touch.
Why do you mix markers and pencils?
So the thing about colouring with pencils is that it takes a long time. And if you, like, I don't like leaving white gaps, and so I end up spending a lot of time just layering. By putting markers underneath, you get it's like an underpainting, and you quickly fill all the areas. So now when you're colouring to fill gaps or to add shading, and you focus on the shading rather than having to focus on filling the area with a pencil. So it's purely just a preference thing. I do find it speeds up my colouring process because, and sorry, I'm just moving to which is this one? This is the tuna. Oh, no. Yeah, I was going to do a mix of dark and light leaves here, so that's why I've grabbed this one. Yeah, I find that it just takes a bit of time off. It's kind of just fun using different things sometimes as well. Definitely not something you have to do, but I enjoy it. And it speeds up the colouring, which means that my favourite part of colouring is the shading and the details. So by doing a marker as a base, I get to then focus more on the shading and the details. So it works for me. Now I'm not going to colour all the leaves in this colour. I'm going to leave a few for the darker teal just to add a bit of variety in the leaves as well. Or you could just colour them all this colour and then add the variety with the pencils.
Jennifer Woods just joined the stream.
Hi, Jennifer. I was trying to put the lid on and then I realised I was putting that end of the lid on, so that's why it wasn't going on. Okay, and now we're on to our 346, which is our darker teal. Okay, so we want what pencil? Which one were we using? Do we remember? Was it the ocean blue or was it the pine? I think it was the ocean blue, wasn't it? Ocean blue, where's that? Nope, that's midnight black. It'll be here somewhere. And that's Mars black. Where is my... Here it is. I found it. It's all good. Thank you, AJ Mastel, for saying the teal is beautiful. All right. Oh, Shane's putting me on camera having my drink. I'm just watching the chat. So distracted. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just a few little shadows again. Same process I've been doing. Leaves behind leaves, get a bit of a shadow. Leaves under the clouds, because our clouds are weirdly dense. I'm getting a shadow as well. And there's not a lot of shading needed on these leaves because they're pretty small. So it's really just adding a bit of something to add that variety so that they're not just a flat colour. The very small leaves are actually probably going to be the hardest to shade, and we'll probably just do like a touch of colour on each, just again so they're not like a flat colour.
When you started on YouTube, were you shy to be on camera? And what's the best angle for showing your art?
The best angle. Well, okay, first question. Yeah, look, being on video was something I had to get used to. What I actually did was I used to go live in my Facebook group as my way of kind of practicing before it was sort of like in front of an audience on YouTube. So when I first started YouTube, I wasn't too bad. First live stream, I was really absolutely nervous. Live streams are a very different game. But in saying that, I feel like now I really enjoy the live streams and I enjoy the feedback. But yeah, I don't really understand the best angle to use for showing your art. I mean, we try to have a top-down camera. I don't know if you can see it. So what you're seeing now is from a camera that's actually above my head and it's like held over the artwork. And that's definitely the best if you can get the angle right. It's just up here. Otherwise, I would say if you're showing the artwork, the main thing is to not have a camera that way looking at it because you're not going to see it. You kind of want something here. So we have another one, you can't quite see it. It's like right here and it's pointing that way and that's the camera that you see. So it's a little bit from my perspective, but it's on the side. But if we did the whole stream in that, everyone would complain they can't see what I'm doing. So that's where the top camera is really useful. I don't know if that was your question, but hopefully that helps. Yeah. And so Mrs. French asking about choosing the two palettes. To save me going through it all again, if you rewatch the stream later, because I know you kind of jumped in late, I did sort of talk through that. Oh, it was probably half an hour ago about why and how I did that. Now, I do have a final question for everyone. So we are very close to finishing, but I have realized that there are little flowers in the middle. Now, these look a bit like sunflowers, especially because they're all facing the same way, and sunflowers are traditionally yellow. I feel like we could, if we brought in like a dark yellow, we could actually make that work. Or we can break the rules of the picture and try to stick more with the color palette for the sake of not making them stand out massively. The two choices, there's no wrong choice here. We could pick a teal and just make them teal flowers and they would be cute. The only reason the yellow, what it will do, because it's not a part of this palette, although it will go nicely with these colors. If I pick like an orangey, let me give you an example. If I pick something like, again, so because I've got similar sort of browns in here, I could bring in this kind of yellow and that would work. You can actually see there if I, well, yeah. You can see there, that color actually goes pretty well with this. So we could bring in the yellow. It kind of breaks the rule of our palette, but that's where these are supposed to be a starting point. They're not like a rule. So we could bring in that yellow. What it will mean is that when people look at this page, their eyes will be drawn to the flowers because they are quite a different color to everything else. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That could be a good thing. That could be our goal of let's bring a different color to bring emphasis to the flowers. If we think that we don't want that to be the centerpiece, then we should probably stick with like these colors, because then it will blend in more, and then this will become the centerpiece of the picture. So neither choice is wrong. It's totally a preference thing. Maybe whatever I end up doing today, you might choose to do something opposite. Welcome, Mrs. French, to teal. Welcome to joining.
I think she's voted for teal.
She's voting for teal by joining teal.
Should we do a poll?
Yeah, why
Yellow
don't
or
we do
teal?
a poll of yellow, which breaks the color palette and brings emphasis to this area, or teal, which sticks with the color palette and will make it a bit more, I'm going to say cohesive, will blend in more with everything else, so that if there's no like one prominent centerpiece. If anything, I think the clouds will still stand out because they're so bright compared to everything else. I haven't done a background. I could. So yeah, we'll let that run for a little bit. While that's running, this feels like a good opportunity to show the coloring book that I was telling you about, because I don't think we have shown this yet on a live stream, except for with our members. So this is still in progress. This is still a draft, but we are working on a brand new coloring book this year with all of my art, and we've done like 10 coloring books in the past, but they were all printed through Amazon on not very good paper. This would be my first hardcover, really high quality coloring book, and I'm very excited about it. I'm treating it like my first ever coloring book with the amount of effort that we've put in. So it is going to be called Vibrant Wilds. This is like our first public announcement of this book, which is very exciting. Let me put it down here so that you can have a look. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a look at what's inside. This will be a bit neater, but we do have some gold foil on the front cover, so it's nice and pretty. We have the spine. I know it's not very clear. Can I zoom out on this camera, Shane? I can't zoom out on the camera if you take the camera off the screen. Because then I can't see what I'm doing. Shane's going to adjust the camera. So let's get this set up. There we go. We're going to zoom out. Look at that. Pro camera operator here. And we're going to get that focus back correct. And we're going to stop it wobbling. So here we go. A bit of a look at Vibrant Wilds, the coloring book, coming out later this year. So we've put a lot of effort into really nice quality hardcover, so it will be easier to look after. This is just the sample, all right? So there are some pages in here that are not finished, and I might not show you everything straight away, but here we have our Vibrant Wilds coloring book. So copyright info will go here. This is a set. This is going to be different. And the same in here. This is going to be different. So there'll be stuff that we're still working on. But here we have some of our coloring pages that we are adding to this book. This is all my artwork that I've done over the past few years. A lot of new stuff that I've worked on specifically for this book. And we still have some that are underway. So we've tried to have, and I wanted to make this approachable, again, for like a beginner learning. So we've got some pages like this. We can practice on these mini ones before you then tackle a full page. So these pictures are like from this page. So you can either just do them as like, your 5-minute coloring activity, or you can use this as like a practice to then come and color this as well. So these are some of the first pages that we've got in here. Most of these are finished. There might be a few slight changes before the final book. Some of these you might recognize bits of, like we've taken this from one of the previous planners and I've just improved the artwork a little bit and tweaked things and then added more to it. These are a few of my favorites. I love this one. This is one of my favorites personally. I can't wait to see how people color these pictures. This is another one that we've adapted from one of my previous artworks. I feel like I've already shown this one, but maybe it was just again to the members. This was, where this is from. You might recognize this picture from my how to draw video that I did recently on the main channel, because this was actually one of the drawings that I was working on in here somewhere. I don't know. It's a part of that video. We went through it. Where are we? Nope, can't even find it. Oh, that one was also, so she was in there earlier. So there's a few pictures that I've taken from my learning to draw that I've then developed further, digitized, and brought into here. I'll come back to the paper in a second. Hang on with me there. So we've got squirrels, because we're learning that I am a little bit obsessed with squirrels. I really like this one as well. That was also in that how to draw video. I drew that. A few unfinished pages in there that I'll spare you from. This is actually the one that's available in the free colouring book when you sign up to our email newsletter, but I did really love this picture and wanted to include it in the book as well. Same with these ones. We have some videos on these from the past of how to do shadows, actually, like we've been talking about today. This one is like a beginner shadow tutorial, and then we do a more advanced shadow tutorial on this as well. So I think that's most of what's finished. The rest that I'm sort of looking at, we've got some pages like this that, actually this one is done because we wanted to leave some space for you to colour. But Moscow made it into the book. More squirrels, because that's a bit fun. Some Australian flora. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's one of my favourite older pages. And then a lot that are just unfinished. But I did want to show you this page. Not because the artwork's done. This is very, very draft artwork. But because this is my testing page. So I wanted to see what markers and pencils this will handle. For context, this paper is the same type of paper as the colouring planner, but it's a lot thicker. So we have got here, I've tested a whole bunch of different supplies. It works beautifully with pencils, I just have to say. Even the polychromos, they're just like really nicely layered. You can see that texture there of like all the different stuff. Comes up really, really well. But it also handles water way more than I expected it would. So here and here, this is watercolor paints, and this was Derwent Inktense. And on both of them, I left so much water on here that it sat in a puddle because I really wanted to push it to its limit. And if you look at the back, nothing has gone through. There is a slight buckling, but given, like, when I say slight, I mean slight. Given how much water I had sitting on this page, I think that's pretty impressive. And the colour doesn't come through at all. So
can I just interrupt a public service announcement with this poll? There's been 111 votes and the result's 50-50.
Oh, that's not helpful at all.
So if you haven't voted, can you vote while Sarah's talking about the book so that we can make a decision?
So we can break the tie. Oh, that's tricky. So back on this, I've got ink pads on here. These are water-based markers. That's 5 layers and 2 layers. And they didn't go through it all. Now, oil pastels as well. When it comes to alcohol markers, let's be clear that alcohol markers go through everything, even bleed-proof paper. It's something that people like, where's an alcohol marker book? And it's like, well, an alcohol marker book is single-sided. That's just how it is. But let me show you how well they did do. I am not going to say that this is suitable for alcohol markers. I just don't want to take on that responsibility of someone destroying their book because it might handle 1 layer, but doing 1 layer of alcohol marker is very hard. So let me show you the results, but please do not take this as an endorsement of using alcohol markers in here. So first of all, I tried different types of markers. So here we have some Olo alcohol markers. We have the Tombow, that's not these. They're actually an alcohol Tombow marker. We have Copic, we have Ohuhu, we have Artex. We also tried Sharpies and Bic markers. And now, ignore the rest for now. These are all alcohol markers. I've got 5 layers and 1 layer, 5 layers here, 3 layers here, 4 layers here. I've tried to do a variety to see how far we could push them. And then to look on the back, they've not come through a lot, but they have come through. So some brands a little bit more than others. You will want to test these for yourself before committing. But what's interesting is our black Ohuhu marker, 1 layer, didn't go through at all. It was actually 4 layers before that started to go through. So if you're someone who is brave and who likes to take on the risk, same with the Copic, the 1 layer is there, the 4 layers is there. You're welcome to take on that risk and just, be careful. Even the Sharpies. Actually, the Sharpie, we did get to 3 layers before you can start to see it. But I'm not going to officially endorse alcohol markers in this book, just to be clear. However, highlighters. That has torn up the artwork a little bit because I scrubbed it with 8 layers while it was still wet. That hasn't gone through at all. The Crayola Super Tips, which are a water-based marker, that is 10 layers, and that hasn't gone through at all. The Tombow Dual Brush Pens, which is what I'm using today, much like with Johanna's book, they don't really go through. I've done 10 layers, wet on wet layers, and that hasn't gone through at all. So, and these are Posca markers. So Sharpie Creative markers and Posca are paint markers. That's 6 layers of a paint marker, and it hasn't gone through. So, in summary on the markers, it can handle a lot. I actually think that we can call this a mixed media paper. It's very, very good. It's beautiful with pencils. Water-based markers will do just fine. Watercolor do pretty well because I think anything buckles a little bit with watercolor. Alcohol markers, leaving that one up to you. I'm not going to say that they work, but I think we pretty much covered every other supply I could think of that you would use in a coloring book, and I think it handles all of them pretty well. So I'm pretty excited about this paper. I'm just trying to see if there's any more pages that are actually ready to show you. There's not really. The rest are kind of like draft or just ideas. And then at the back, we've included an art supply test page so that you can actually test this stuff for yourself to see what works. We've got 2. So you can test the front and the back, see what goes through, see what supplies will work. I recommend if you are going to use a supply, test multiple layers so that you can actually see at what point it goes through, if at all. But that is the Vibrant Wilds. This will be coming later this year. We will give you plenty of warning, and we'll be probably, at this stage, our plan is to put this on Amazon instead of our own website at first. Just kind of go on a mission, which I need your help with, to try and get the bestseller rank up on Amazon to see if we can actually get it into like the top 100 coloring books. And we'll make it available on a website eventually as well. We might even make a printable version. We haven't made some of these decisions yet, so don't hold me to any of that, but we will be planning all of that. It's pushing towards teal and that thing, but also just to quickly show you, this is not this year's planner, to be clear. However, the This Year's one we're still waiting. It probably isn't going to arrive before we finish this stream. It's going to arrive in the mail today. But I did want to show you that we have brought out a compact planner. So this is the compact, not just a compact planner. We've brought out a compact planner. Hang on. We've got the classic planner, which is what you've already seen. We now have the compact planner, which is this smaller size. And we are also bringing out undated planners in both sizes. So that means like my team and I are working on like 6 new planners this year. It's a lot. But this is the compact undated planner. So I wanted to quickly give you a look at how this is different. We'll be really, really quick. We've taken all of the months off the tabs, so you can start it at any month. You can make it a mid-year planner or a teacher planner. And again, this is the compact size, so it's a bit smaller than the classic size. We've taken out a few pages to actually make it thinner, as well as, in fact, I've got this. So here is our classic, and here is our compact. So you can see that's quite a bit smaller. And it's also thinner. So it's probably a bit blurry to see, but you've got a much thinner planner as well. So the whole point is that it's just smaller in a few different ways. Every month we've taken off anything that has to do with dates, so that you've got still all of these features. This has been moved to here to save on space. And the colouring, rather than getting rid of it, rather than making it stupidly thin borders, we've kept it just to the top. So I think some people might actually end up preferring this, having just something small to colour, rather than having all the frames that we have on the other one. And because this is the undated version, we've stripped all the dates as well. So we will do, look, I'm not going to go through this in too much detail now. We are going to do a live stream when they're all ready. And you'll see this year's ones, you'll see the compact and the classic, and you'll also see the undated set as well. This is one of the undated ones because we're going to be bringing out an undated one every year. So we thought, well, let's bring out one with last year's artwork as well. We might as well, so that you have a choice of this one or the new design for the undated. They'll both be available. So that's that. I do think we finally have an answer on the thing, but I'm conflicted now because it was so close. 52 to 48 on that poll. So we're going with teal, but it was close. I kind of want to like make a copy of the page just to see what it would look like with yellow, but that's a bit too much effort. There is a question here I'm just going to answer quickly. Is there a way you can prep the paper for alcohol markers? So you can use gesso, and what gesso will do will create a barrier. However, and I've used this in a few videos that I've done where I used gesso on a page and then did alcohol markers. It stops the alcohol markers going through. However, it also changes how the alcohol markers behave. So you need to try it and see if you like it. I think in my experience, using alcohol markers on gesso kind of feels like just using water-based markers. They don't blend the same way. They don't work the same way because of just and in fact, they kind of sit on the surface more because the gesso is like a thick surface. So have a go at it. But again, I do it on a test page. I wouldn't do it straight in your book unless you've like done it a few times before. Let's move on. I might use the lighter teal for these and leave the center of them empty. I think the center being white might be the best way to do. Or should we do the opposite? Too many decisions. I'm just going to go for it. We're going to do light on the petals. Now, I know that there was a bunch of comments and questions that came in when I was going through that stuff, so maybe Shane, you can catch us up. No pressure.
Yeah, I'm just reading through them all. Is there a way that you can prep the paper for alcohol markers like you can in a sketchbook with other media?
Yeah, so that's what we just mentioned with the gesso.
Now, I don't know if this is for the planner or the colouring book, are the back pages going to be black paper?
No. Oh, I think we're probably referring to the colouring book because of this. It's actually a very dark green. But yeah, that's going to be like that.
But the printing will be more consistent.
Yeah, it'll be like it's a little bit blotchy on this copy, but it'll be a bit nicer. But yeah, it's not quite black. It's and it's just that last page. So if you want to colour that, you can go for it. It was really intended to be just a decorative thing, but feel free to do whatever you want.
And there's a suggestion here that you could take a picture of your finished colouring page and change the colour on your iPad.
That's a good idea. Well, I've gone with the teal. I've left the white. I haven't done any shading or anything, but I think it needs filling. Maybe we can try the dark teal as the centers. And then if we shade, the shading can make it darker again. Because the white to me just feels unfinished. So yeah, I think in a few weeks' time we'll do a live stream showing off the new planner. By the time we want to have the live stream when it's ready for pre-order, so we'll organise that at some point. I want what was the colour? It's not ocean blue, is it? Yes. Oh, the lighting's funny. It was looking grey for a second there. I want my ocean blue. That's black. These pencils all started so neat at the start. They always do. They start so neat and they end up just everywhere mixed up. Here we are. Ocean blue. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is just shade around the outside edge of the center. Darken anything that's kind of sitting behind a cloud, including the petals. Or behind another flower. You know what I haven't done on this page that I almost always do is highlights with the white pen. But in a picture like this, I'm not sure what I would highlight other than maybe the flowers. And I'm not sure that the flowers need much more other than maybe a little bit of shading on the inside of the petals as it goes into the center. I don't think it needs much else. I think we're done. I mean, you could always do more with this. You could always add more detailing in the rocks, or you could, yeah, like we said, turn the lights on, or you could use different colors on the different sections. Like there is always more you can do. But I think I'm happy with this. I think I'm done. Curious to hear what you think of the final result, and if you decided to color along, whether you did it the same or differently, whether you used different pencils or picked yellow flowers. I'd love to see them. So look, if you are a part of our Facebook group, please post it in there. It's a free group, so anyone can join. It's called Colouring with Sarah. Please post how you went. If you're one of our members and you coloured along, please post it in our Discord. We'd love to see how you went. But I think that's it. I think we're done. And I hope this was enjoyable. I know that today it hasn't been as lively as our usual live stream. Shane was right in that he said it would be a 2-hour live stream. I was like, no. I'm going to do an hour and a half. We're going to aim for an hour. It's going to be an hour and a half. But Shane nailed it almost to the minute. It's like 2 minutes left to be 2 hours. So Shane was right. So well done, Shane. He knows me too well. He knows that I can't have a short live stream. But this was a short live stream because usually it's like 3 hours and I'm halfway through the page and I'm like, oh, we can't finish it. So it's actually really cool to finish a page with you guys. I think I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I have really enjoyed hanging out with you. And we might head off. I can hear one of my sons coughing downstairs, and he's been coughing for about 20 minutes, and there's not much we can do about it, but I do want to just spend some time with the family. And I will probably rest for the rest of the day. Well, I'll be resting on the couch while finishing our colouring planner. So it's kind of half rest, half work. But that's kind of where we're at the moment. We just are trying to do a few things at once and deal with some family stuff at the same time. But everything will be back to normal soon. And I do want you to know that we are all good here. Please don't worry about us. We've just got a lot on. And we are very excited to work on the mixed media video. Maybe, I've posted a picture, but maybe just to finish up. Everything's to finish up, isn't it? Let me give you a quick tour of where we're at, or at least show you a couple of pages, because the mixed media has been very exciting to work on. So I just want to show you a few of my favorite pages. This is one that I just finished yesterday. That was so much fun. It's a bit silly. The flying cat is my favorite thing. So this was just, I don't know, just a bit of fun. I've actually found this to be a bit of art therapy for me in journaling and doing mixed media. With everything going on right now and everything being a bit much, it's been really nice to just sit and just make art that is silly or doesn't matter or is just totally different to anything I'll do, but there's no pressure. When I start the picture, I don't have an end goal, and I love that. Another one. A few pages are stuck together because I'm not giving them enough time to dry. It's another one that I don't know if this one's finished. Maybe tell me what you think. I feel like it needs more. It needs like a centerpiece. So I feel like this might just be background, but I kind of just like it. So I might even just leave it as is. This is another one of my favorites. I really like how this turned out. This was just a lot of random, just going with the flow and not really knowing where it's going to end up. And I really like how it turned out. And I've got a few more that I can show you properly in the video, that we're sort of, everything's stuck together. But this is one I posted the picture of. Everything keeps re-sticking. I posted this one in the community post. This was the most recent one I've done, and I really like how this turned out. I printed off this photo, made it actually black and white on the computer, and then brought it back. And yeah, I don't know. I am really enjoying mixed media a lot more than I thought I would, in just the process and the escape and the just going all in, knowing that there will be mistakes. It has been a real journey to fearless creativity for me. And I hope, and we wanted to spend more time on the video for this, because as much as I've done a lot, and it would be enough to put together a video right now, I want to give this more time. I want to go into it a bit deeper. I want to explore it more. I want to talk to more people that do mixed media. And I want to make sure that when we do present the video on our channel, that it is the best it can be, but it's also like my heart is really in it. And if we rush it now and tried to get it out this week or next week, it's not going to be fully what I wanted, and it's not going to fully be me. And I think that's the biggest reason why it's worth us just saying no and just putting it back. I know a lot of you wouldn't care if we just did it all casual and didn't put the effort in. It's not so much about the quality for me as much as it's about making sure it speaks to what I want to speak to in that video. And for us, that means taking more time. That's been a bit of this year in general, is taking more time on our videos, and we hope to just do more live streams to kind of fill that gap. And I'm really excited about that one, so I hope that you do actually watch it when it comes out. If you haven't watched my most recent few videos, they do have low views, so I suspect a lot of people haven't seen them, but they're also videos that we've been really proud of because we have put more time into them than we usually do. So please check them out, even if you're not sure. I hope that you'll enjoy them. Let me know what you feel in the comments. But I am going to say goodbye for now, and gonna go have a bit of a rest. And I hope that you also have a restful weekend, a restful night, day, whatever time it is for you. And thank you so much for joining me. It has been wonderful, and I feel very supported by you all at the moment, so thank you.